Hi everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. Thank you for watching. On this episode, I thought I would go through my picture sleeve collection. And picture sleeves, if you're not familiar with the terminology, is when you bought singles, vinyl singles. They either came in a generic label sleeve, whether it was Capitol Records or CBS Records or whatever, or it would actually have a picture of the artist, artwork, and sometimes it was a picture of the album cover, sometimes it was a completely different shot, and I find them very, very collectible, and it's something that I've never really set out to amass a large single collection, but over the years, just in making various stops, I've found some cool stuff. The other thing I want to show you is a book that I've had. I got this for Christmas a long time ago. It came out in 1998, so I don't know how the prices hold up now, but this is the Goldmine 45 RPM picture sleeve price guide. And this was written by a guy named Charles Slaba. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name. And this is very, very complete for every major label recording artist up until the time that this came out. I mean, there weren't many in the later 90s, but it goes all the way back to the 50s. And on the back here you can see this is one that I'll be talking about. There's the Beatles, Elvis. It's the one from Animal House. It's actually, I think it's, what's his name? Stephen Bishop. Anyway, so this rate all genres of music and alphabetically, and it gives you the price with the sleeve and with the sleeve. But actually, no, it doesn't even rate the vinyl. It doesn't even matter about the vinyl. It's the sleeve itself, whether it's in mint shape or very good or what it is, and what you can expect to get if you sell them. There's a color section in the middle of this. Just show you here, just various artwork. There's a lot of cool pictures in here, and I learned a lot from this book here. Just to give you a funny example, so I think I got this in 2000 or 99 or 2000. And I thought I had all the Survivor albums, or most of them. I didn't realize that they put an album out in between Eye of the Tiger and Vital Signs. I didn't know they put out Caught in the Game in 1983 until I saw the title song's sleeve listed here from 1983. This is before I had ready access to the internet. So anyway, it's a cool book, and I thought it would be a good way to start off this episode. So like most of these types of ones that aren't on particular artists, I'm going to go through these alphabetically. And I featured a lot of these on various episodes on the artist, but this one is just strictly the picture sleeves. First one I'm going to show you is Bryan Adams' Heat of the Night. This is a US sleeve on A&M. Lyrics to the song are on the back here. So, like I said, this is from the same photo session from the End of the Fire album, but it's not the album cover, so that's an example. Now here's an example of one that pretty much is. This is April Wine. This could be the right one from Animal Grace, and this is basically about half of the album cover. The full album cover has all of the robot dog's body, or whatever this is. And it's the same thing on both sides. This is a Canadian version on Aquarius, and as I've talked about on my various April Wine vinyl episodes, this is an example of a single that has a B-side that didn't make the album. It's a song called I Really Don't Want Your Love, which is a cool song. Would have fit very much in on the album, and one of the better tracks on it. It never ended up on CD. This next one is very cool. It's Canadian. I thought it was UK because the UK like doing really cool, different stuff, but this is Bon Jovi, Born to Be My Baby, from my favorite Bon Jovi album, New Jersey. This is a limited edition envelope pack. It includes 3 postcards at regular 7-inch price. So there you go. It opens up like an envelope, and inside of it, so here's the single. It's your standard Mercury label for this. The B-side's Love for Sale. And it actually has, sometimes when you get these things used, they don't have everything that came with them, but it has these postcards. So I'm assuming that's the band from a press conference. Yes, these are actual postcards. And there's one of just John, and then there's one, that's not the exact photo, but it's from the same photo session of a picture that ended up, well, actually this one from the inside of the New Jersey album. So that was kind of fun. Next up is Boston. This is Amanda from Third Stage. This is a Canadian single on MCA. Lyrics to the song are on the back. And the record, or the vinyl itself is just the standard rainbow MCA label, but with the Boston logo on there too. couple from one of my favorite overlooked rock bands, Coney Hatch. This is their very first single, I believe, Hey Operators, their best known song from their first album in '82. And this is a UK version on Mercury Phonogram. And its B-side was Devil's Deck, which is odd because that was a video too anyway. And this says from the forthcoming Coney Hatch album, which is really cool. And it had a personalized label, Hatch 1. Personalized serial number, I meant to say. And UK sleeves opened up a little bit differently and look very different as well. Small hole in the middle and silver. Very cool. Love this band. Talk about Coney Hatch as much as I can. I got another one from them. This one is a Canadian one. First Time for Everything with B-side Fallen Angel, both from the Out of Hand album, their second one from '83. This has the lyrics to the song on it, which is a kind of an interesting touch. And this is a Canadian version on Anthem Records, so you can surmise that chances are, and it does, it looks like your standard Anthem label. Now next we're going to talk about my Def Leppard 45s, and I'm going to cut to a special video that I'm going to show you here. But first of all, I got one to show you that's just by itself. This was one of their very first singles. This is Hello America, and this is a European version on phonogram Vertigo. And what's cool about this, well, the artwork's different. This didn't appear on For the Night anywhere, but on the back, you can see that it's got the B-side Good Morning Freedom, which now that their early years box set is out is available, but it wasn't for a long time. And the first time that it was readily available was the live version on the second disc of the Leppard Hysteria package that came out a few years ago. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now the record itself there's a plain white sleeve that it's in, but it's kind of hard to get out. So I'll just show you. This looks just like that Coney Hatch one, silver, except it's Vertigo and not Phonogram, although ultimately it's the same company. If you're a longtime watcher of Tim's Vinyl Confessions, first of all, thank you. But second, you may recall Matt and I did an episode 5 years ago going through one of our all-time favorite albums mutually. One that we have in common, of course, is Def Leppard's Hysteria. When the singles were released in this album, the original plan was to put out 9 singles. They ended up putting out 7. And so on my own, I thought I would try to go to eBay and recreate the collage myself, which I did. I got a frame. And the frame is great. It actually holds 9 singles or 12 singles instead of 9. So I'll go through. First of all, the collage, and the order that the singles came out, that's Women, Animal in the middle there, the title song, Hysteria, that's the single itself from Hysteria, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Love Bites, Armageddon It, and Rocket. Now, you may notice there's 9 squares there. What I did to fill out the space, I figured that if I got another Love Bites, that would look, it actually belongs there. You can see how that goes. But here, it looks okay. Down here, I just got another single for Women. It turned it upside down, so those lines intersect. And because, like I said, it holds 12, I needed something to fill out the bottom. So I got a couple others. That's Photograph, of course, Pyromania. I took the single itself out from Hysteria, and that is the Australian single for Rocket, which used a different artwork, which because that was the last single released from the album, almost 2 years after it came out, it's the same theme, but they did use, it's not one square of the album. They also used it for this cassette EP here. So there you go. I've got a few here to show you that are not North American, because by the early 90s, they weren't making vinyl, and they definitely weren't making picture sleeve singles, with some exceptions. But this one is, well, it's definitely European anyway. This is Europe, I'll Cry For You, from the Prisoners in Paradise album, which didn't do anything in North America. I thought it was a great album from 1991. Of course, that was bad time for this kind of music. So this is the single for that. It was actually a big hit overseas. B-side of this, Seventh Sign, that's the Prisoners in Paradise album cover itself, which I don't even have on vinyl. So this is the closest. This is the only time I have songs from Prisoners in Paradise on vinyl right now, anyway. And the record itself is the European Epic logo, small hole. And what I think is a really nice touch, because I don't, honestly, I don't display my singles the same way I do my records, but they have these, sometimes you find them used and they have these cool little sleeves with them that are made for singles. Very nice touch. Next up is Extreme More Than Words. This is a UK, it's a UK version, but it's pretty much the same as what you would have seen in North America, because I know the cassette single had this cover to it. So there was a uniform system. But what's interesting about this is it's got the B-side Nice Place to Visit, which was not on Porn Graffiti, and the fact that it was produced by Mac tells me that it was originally done on their first album, because he produced that album. And since A&M was ultimately owned by Polygram at the time, this looks like the Coney Hatch and the Def Leppard singles. And obviously they kept that for a long, long time, all the way up through 1990 anyway. Next up is an example of pretty much just using the album artwork. This is Fleetwood Mac. Don't Stop was the A-side, and Never Going Back Again is the B-side, and that's just the picture from Rumors. It's a little bit more white. It's not as off-white as the album cover itself. These pictures are from the inner sleeve of Rumors, and this is, I think this is a US. Well, no, it's Canadian, actually. It's a Canadian single. It's got the Burbank logo on it. I got some Foreigner here. I got 3 Foreigner sleeves that I've just managed to find over time. Double Vision with Lonely Children on the B-side. That's a full band shot which spanned the front and back covers of the Double Vision album. There's the back cover advertising the albums that were out at the time, all 2 of them. And the single itself was the red and black Atlantic label. I like the look of this one. Next one's cool. The biggest Foreigner album was the 4th one, Foreigner 4. So when they put the singles out, they just simply numbered them. This is Urgent. This was the first single from 4, so it has a 1 on it. Other than that, it looks just like this, the cover to 4, and there's the previous 3. This is a Canadian edition on Atlantic. And last Foreigner one is I Don't Want to Live Without You from Inside Information. This is a US copy. By the late 80s, cassette singles were starting to come out, and by the early 90s, they were overtaken by CD singles, and then digital, I guess. There just wasn't anything. Next up, Sammy Hagar, Give to Live from 1987. This one's cool because it's got an Ames price tag on it, which is an American department store that was, and obviously whoever bought it from there for $1.77. And so this came out before his album came out. It was originally self-titled, of course, after the fact changed to I Never Said Goodbye, so they didn't really have a title for it, but they did have a serial number. And the B-side of this was When the Hammer Falls, which did appear. Both of those songs appeared on that record. And it's just the standard Geffen look to this. We have Heart, Who We Run To. This is from the Bad Animals album, and it's a US copy on Capitol. Live version of Magic Man on the B-side, and that's the Bad Animals cover. This one's well worn, but not in bad shape. And this got the rainbow, well, I call it the rainbow, all the different colors, the Capitol label they were using at the time, and the actual heart, the way they had it written on the self-titled album is there. Next up, some Helix. This is Dream On from Wild in the Streets, same background as the Wild in the Streets album cover, and this is a Canadian version on Capitol Records. That's the photo from the inner sleeve, and this looks just like that Heart single that we just showed you. Got another one from Helix here. Got this one when I saw them in concert in 2016. This is All I Want for Christmas is the Leafs to Win the Cup. So this is a personalized one here. Brian Ballmer signed it. There's the lyrics to the song. And so there's another one here. It's very festive looking. Red label, green vinyl. And the B-side is their version of Jingle Bells from their Heavy Mental Christmas CD. And actually, I bought that when I saw them along with these guys, Honeymoon Suite. This is the single to Feel It Again. This is a Canadian one on WEA. I never understood why they made the B-side Wounded. To me, that's one of their strongest tracks. That should have been a single as well. Feel It Again's a great song, so is Wounded. They'd come up with those two back to back. Anyway, there's the single itself, the Canadian WEA logo with the Honeymoon Suite logo here. And actually, I got the follow-up to that song, the next single they released from Big Prize, What Does It Take? That covers on the back, not this blue stuff here, but that covers on the back cover of the Big Prize. And this was from a movie called One Crazy Summer. I think that's John Cusack and Demi Moore. So there's some scenes from the movie there. And this is a Canadian single on WEA. B-side of this, another great song, Words in the Wind, that could have been a single. That Big Prize is just a great album in and of itself. It's just full of potential singles. Next up is another movie one. Journey, Only the Young from Vision Quest. And this is interesting because Journey, of course, recorded for Columbia, but this single's on Geffen Records because the soundtrack was on Geffen Records. And Journey weren't really together as a band at this point. This was an outtake from the Frontier sessions from '83. Steve Perry did his solo album in '84. We'll see more about that coming up. So they just kind of had the song laying around. It ended up being a top 10 hit. And there's a very touching story behind it about a young boy that liked the band, and you can see that on there behind the music. And this is a US single. And since it is on Geffen Records, the B-side is a Geffen artist. So there's Journey, which looks funny with the Geffen, and Journey appears to the courtesy of Columbia Records. Now the B-side is Sammy Hagar, I'll Fall in Love Again from Standing Hampton, which is from '81, and somehow, must be because he was a Geffen artist at the time, it ended up on the Vision Quest soundtrack. Got another Journey one here. This is Suzanne, great tune from Raised on Radio, and this is a Canadian picture sleeve single on Columbia. There's the black and white version of the Raised on Radio cover, and as you might guess, typical Columbia, that's the look that they used for their singles. B-side, another great Journey tune, Ask the Lonely. Next up, my only picture sleeve from Kansas. This is Fight Fire with Fire from Drastic Measures. This is just the album cover to Drastic Measures, and the B-side is Incident on a Bridge. This is a US edition on CBS, CBS Associated, which had a very different look to it. By now they weren't going on, Kirshner Records, I guess, was no more. Now I got some Kiss to show you here. A few picture sleeve singles. The very first one they did as a picture sleeve single in North America was Flaming Youth. That one's really hard to find. It's just got the Destroyer cover on it. I Love It Loud. Of course, this is the Creatures of the Night era. That's Creatures of the Night cover. Back cover. This is a Canadian edition on, it was last time they were on Casablanca Records, but it's Polygram ultimately. And the single itself just looks like that. B-side is Danger, both songs from one of my favorite Kiss albums, Creatures of the Night. Next one's interesting because Lick It Up, of course, was a big comeback for Kiss, their first non-makeup album. The single did quite well for them. It actually charted a little higher in Canada. It was a top 40 hit in Canada. It did not do that in the States. And in the States, it was not issued with a picture sleeve, which usually Canadian issues were just the same. But in Canada, they got a picture sleeve, the infamous Vinnie Vincent era. So this is a Canadian issue on Mercury. And the single itself looks very much like the records at the time, except it's got the Kiss logo on it, of course. Next up, Heaven's on Fire from Animalize. Actually, it doesn't say anything on here besides the Kiss logo. That's the photo of the band from the back cover. This, I think, is a Canadian issue. It's got Lonely as a Hunter on the back cover. It's interesting because this came out in 1984, and it says from the Kiss album, cassette, and compact disc Animalize. So CDs were starting to come in quite early at this point, 84. This is what the single itself looks like. It's yellow. And one more Kiss one to show you, Crazy Crazy Nights. This is just the Crazy Nights album cover. And this is a US copy on Mercury. That's what the single itself looked like. That was the standard Mercury label that they used at that time. This next one is a record store only 2018 release that I was lucky enough to find. This is Led Zeppelin. Rock and Roll with the B-side Friends, both different mixes that had never been released. Rock and Roll, the Sunset Sound mix, and Friends is the Olympic Studios mix. So there you go, some Zeppelin on picture sleeve. Loverboy, loving every minute of it. This is a Canadian single. Back cover there, and the single itself looks just like the Journey one. This is what just Columbia singles looked like at the time, with the orange and yellow. Another one is from the time when singles weren't coming out in North America with picture sleeves. This is Mr. Big, To Be With You. This is a UK version on Atlantic Records. Of course, I've seen the cassette single. It looked like this. Live version of Bob O'Reilly by The Who on the B-side of this. Recorded in Tokyo. Mr. Big was always big in Japan. And when I originally got this, I pointed this out. It's missing. It's missing some writing. It's very strange. But cool, ultimately. And to this day, this is the only Mr. Big vinyl I actually have right now, so far. Steve Perry, O'Sherry from Street Talk, and this is just the Street Talk album cover. This is a US version on Columbia. And it has the red or the orange and yellow Columbia label. Next up, great tune. Robert Plant, Little by Little from Shaken and Stirred. This is a Canadian edition on Atlantic. B-side's called Trouble Your Money. Both songs from the same album. And a very unique looking label. The Esperanza, which as far as I know was only ever used for Robert Plant releases. Next up, my only picture sleeve from Poison. This is Fallen Angel. This is it's a US version on Capitol. And they were still under the Enigma banner as well, so that's what you see here. But Capitol logos are throughout. Now we're coming up to another, an early Record Store Day version for me, edition. 2010, I think Matt found this for me. This is Queen, Keep Yourself Alive. This is their very first single. This was their very first single, but this is a 40th anniversary reprint of it. Maybe this is 2011. This is Record Store Day 2011. And this is a reprint. It actually says sleeve design based on the original Portuguese 7-inch. Which is very cool. This is on Hollywood Records, which had acquired the Queen catalog at this point. And the single itself looks very cool, very classy. B-side, Son and Daughter, both songs from their first album. Okay, now we got some Rush. New World Man. This is a Canadian cardboard sleeve. So that's the font that they used on the Signals album. Here's the B-side. Those pictures came from inside Signals. And what's cool about this, Rush never did B-sides, very rarely. They never did any cover songs except for feedback, and they never had any alternate takes. But this one is an exception. It has a live version of Vital Signs, which was recorded but not used for Exit Stage Left. So this is a place to get that. And the single itself is the standard Canadian anthem. If you recall, the Coney Hatch one looked like that. Next is a UK single, another Rush one, another cardboard one, The Body Electric from Grace Under Pressure. Folded very differently, like the Coney Hatch Hey Operator one. That's the single itself with the Grace Under Pressure C-clamp. In the UK, they just, I don't know, they seem to put a little bit extra into their, they were really, really big on singles, so they always did a really good job with them. I got one more Rush to show you. It's another Record Store Day thing. I think I got this the same time as the Queen, Keep Yourself Alive. This was Caravan from Clockwork Angels, which hadn't yet come out. This is a date of 2010 on it. It's a US Atlantic Records. So it's got Caravan and BU2B, both of which ended up on Clockwork Angels, both of which Rush played live on the Time Machine tour. Next up is another UK sleeve and another band that I don't have a lot of vinyl from. This is Skid Row, Wasted Time from Slave to the Grind. I don't have that on vinyl. So this is the only thing I have from that album on vinyl. This is a UK sleeve on Atlantic, and it's cardboard, heavy cardboard. And what's awesome about this is that the B-side is Holidays in the Sun, which is a Sex Pistols cover that they did for the Make a Difference Foundation album, which was Doc McGee's stable of bands, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, plus with Scorpions, Ozzy, doing songs by people that had died from drug or alcohol abuse. And because Bon Jovi did The Boys Are Back in Town, Motley Crue did Teaser, and on and on. And Cinderella did Janis Joplin's Move Over. That one found a home on their best of. But Holidays in the Sun, because that album was released on Polygram, it didn't make any of the Skid Row compilations. So here it is on this vinyl. And it's got a small hole label in it, but it does have the standard Atlantic green and red look to it here. All right, I got a couple by 38 Special. This is Teacher Teacher from the Teacher's soundtrack. This is, I believe this is a Canadian sleeve. That could be, yeah, this is a Canadian sleeve. On Capitol Records, the 38 Special were on A&M Records, but the Teacher's soundtrack was on Capitol Records. So that's what this is here. This, like the Journey one says, 38 Special appears courtesy of A&M Records. The B-side is 20th Century Fox, which is from Tour de Force album. Next up, another 38 Special single from 1986, Somebody Like You, from the Strength of Numbers album. This is a US sleeve on A&M, and that's kind of what the Strength of Numbers album cover looked like. It was die cut. Mine's actually unopened, so I've never actually looked at a copy of it. Typical A&M look. This is what the A&M singles looked like. Next up, I've shown this one before, Toto, I'll Be Over You. This is a Canadian single on Columbia from Zellers, where Zellers used to be, and there you go. And that's the Fahrenheit album cover. That's one where they didn't bother doing something different for it. I'll Be Over You, the single, and the B-side is In a Word, which is a great tune, ended up on their Toto XX album, which was B-sides and unreleased songs over the years that came out in 1998. Great collection of songs. Next up, my only Van Halen picture sleeve. This is Why Can't This Be Love? Straight jacket photo from the inside of 5150. I like this graphic they used on the back. I'd never seen this anywhere else. This is a US version on Warner Brothers. And the single itself is your standard Warner Brothers look to it. B-side was Get Up. Got another UK one to show you here. One of my favorite early Whitesnake songs, the original version of Fool for Your Loving. This one, this came out in North America on Mirage Atlantic. I've got I think a German version, or at least a European version on EMI Electrola. And it's got the same cover with this, it looks like a snake when you first looked at it, but it's actually just a belt. And the B-sides are from the two previous Whitesnake albums. So Fool for Your Loving's from Ready and Willing. B-side is Mean Business from Love Hunter, and Don't Mess With Me from the album Trouble. So EMI Electrola, also United Artists Records, which it's really confusing with the Whitesnake albums. United Artists was a division of Capitol ultimately, and I think Snakebite, Trouble, and Love Hunter came out on United Artists in North America, but after that they switched to Mirage, but they stayed on it in the UK. Very, very confusing. Kind of a nightmare for collectors, but at the same time, fun. Now, I just pulled this out. There we go. Just pulled this out, couldn't get it back in. I'm sure there's a David Coverdale joke there somewhere. And finally, last one I have to show you is one of my favorite songs by Yes, Love Will Find a Way from Big Generator. Now, this is interesting because when I bought this, it said it had a sticker on it from LWTMS, and I had no idea what that stood for. And maybe if I've got some people watching from the UK, maybe you can explain this to me. Please return to London Weekend Television Music Services. It almost looks like you could sign it out like a library book. Am I right about that? South Bank Television Centre, Kent House, Upper Ground, London. And it says library number, and it's written in pen here. I don't understand it. Anyway, it's also a promotional copy, not for resale, so there you go. That's the same type of writing that was on the Big Generator album. It's kind of a hard plastic sleeve, too. And small hole, but the standard Atco label. So it's got Love Will Find a Way, B-side, Holy Lamb. And that is a look through my picture sleeve collection. If you're watching this on YouTube, but if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter especially, I'd love to see some cool picture sleeves you've got in the comments, and just tell me about them. What cool picture sleeves have you got? Is there anything in particular that you think I should be looking for? Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Hi everyone, and welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I am Tim Derling, and that sucked. Let's have a drink.